Why your 40s are your best wealth-building decade. You wake up in the morning and your knees crack. You look in the mirror and see gray hair where there wasn't any a few years ago. And somewhere in the back of your mind, there's a voice telling you that your best years are behind you. That if you haven't built wealth by now, you've missed your window. What if I told you that voice is lying? What if I told you that your 40s are actually your best decade for building wealth? Not your 20s, not your 30s, your 40s. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm going to show you 5 data-backed reasons why this is true. We're going to look at the research from Harvard and MIT. We're going to run the actual math on compound interest. And we're going to examine real people like Sam Walton, who started Walmart at 44, and Warren Buffett, who built 99% of his wealth after age 50. If you're in your 40s and you're ready to understand why this is your decade, hit that subscribe button and comment primetime below. Because what I'm about to show you will completely change how you see your age and your potential. Let me start with the first reason that changes everything. Reason 1, you're entering your peak performance years. The first reason your 40s are your best wealth-building decade is that you're entering your peak performance years. And yes, I know what you're thinking. Peak performance? I wake up in the morning and my knees crack. I can't run a 6-minute mile anymore. How is this my peak? Here's what most people get wrong. They think peak performance means physical performance. And yes, your physical peak was back in your 20s. That ship has sailed, my friend, and it's not coming back. But we're not talking about bench pressing or running marathons. We're talking about the convergence of experience, energy, wisdom, and strategic thinking that happens specifically in your 40s. And that's where real wealth gets built. The research backs this up completely. According to studies published in the Harvard Business Review, professional peak performance, especially in high-skilled knowledge-based careers, typically occurs between the ages of 40 and 55. This isn't motivational speak. This is data. Professor Dean Keith Simonton at UC Davis studied career trajectories across thousands of professionals and found that career success and productivity increase for the first 20 years of your career, peaks around age 50, and then begins to taper off. But here's what really matters for wealth building. Studies from MIT and Harvard revealed something fascinating. While our muscle mass and general athleticism peaks in our 20s, the brain and our ability to synthesize complex information and make strategic decisions actually peaks in our 40s or early 50s. Let that sink in for a minute. Your cognitive abilities, your decision-making capacity, your strategic thinking, you're operating at one of the highest levels you'll ever reach. And we can see this playing out in real life with extraordinary examples. Take Sam Walton. The man had a decent retail management career in his 20s and 30s. Nothing spectacular, just solid work managing Ben Franklin stores. But at age 44 in 1962, he opened the first Walmart in Rogers, Arkansas. 44 years old. Not exactly the age when most people think about starting a revolutionary business empire. By the time he died in 1992, he was one of the richest people in the world. Today, his family remains the wealthiest family in America, with a net worth of over $400 billion, all because a 44-year-old man decided his best years were not behind him. They were just getting started. Or consider Laura Ingalls Wilder. She lived what she called an ordinary life for 65 years. Then at age 65, she published her first Little House book. She went on to write 12 more novels after that, creating a literary legacy that's still beloved today and spawned one of the most successful TV series in history. This is what peak performance looks like in your 40s and beyond. You have the experience to avoid the rookie mistakes that cost people in their 20s and 30s thousands of dollars. You still have the energy to execute at high levels and put in the work required. And you have the wisdom to make strategic decisions that younger versions of yourself simply couldn't make. because you didn't have the context. So if you're in or entering your 40s and you feel like it's too late, stop right there. You're not past your prime, you're just entering it. Reason 2, these are your peak earning years. The second reason your 40s are ideal for wealth building is directly connected to that peak performance. When you're operating at your cognitive best, you're also operating at your financial best. These are your peak earning years, and the numbers prove it. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, median earnings peak at $71,000 between the ages of 45 and 54. Now, that's just the median, which means half of the people earn more than that. But here's what gets really interesting. When you look at high-income earners, the advantage becomes even more pronounced. PayScale research shows that for college-educated professionals, the income trajectory is dramatic. Individuals with bachelor's degrees see their salaries continue to climb through their 40s, with peak earnings typically occurring around age 50 to 52. We're talking about a 30 to 50% increase from their baseline in their 30s. That's not a small bump. That's a fundamental shift in earning power. Let me give you some specific examples to make this concrete. According to salary data, surgeons and specialists hit their peak earning years between 45 and 55, often making $400,000 to $600,000 annually during this period. Corporate executives typically see their highest compensation packages in their late 40s and early 50s. Senior software engineers and tech leaders at major companies often don't hit their $300,000 plus compensation packages until their 40s. But it's not just about the absolute numbers. It's about what I call career capital. Steve Martin once said, "Be so good they can't ignore you." By your 40s, if you've been intentional about your career, you've built exactly that kind of capital. Think about what you have by this point. You have specialized skills that are rare and valuable. You can't just learn these overnight. They took decades to develop. You have a proven track record of results. You're not a question mark anymore. Companies and clients know what they're getting with you. You have an industry reputation and connections that open doors younger professionals can't access. You understand how to navigate organizational politics and complex business relationships. These aren't things you learn in school. They come from years in the trenches. And all of this translates to leverage. Real leverage. The kind you can use to negotiate higher salaries because you know your worth and can demonstrate it. The kind that helps you secure better positions because your reputation precedes you. Or even the kind that allows you to start your own business with a built-in network of potential clients and partners who already trust you. This is why your 40s are the sweet spot. You're making more money than you ever have. And if you're wise with it during these peak earning years, you can really supercharge your path to wealth. If you're living below your means instead of inflating your lifestyle with every raise, if you're staying out of debt instead of financing a more expensive life, and if you're investing consistently instead of spending everything you make, you can turn this peak earning decade into a wealth-building rocket ship. But I know some of you are still thinking, okay, I'm earning more, but isn't it too late to actually build real wealth? That's exactly what we need to address next, because the math tells a very different story. Reason 3. Compound interest still works beautifully in your favor. The third reason your 40s are perfect for wealth building is something that might surprise you. The math of compound interest still works beautifully in your favor. I know. Every financial guru tells you that you have to start investing early or you're doomed to financial failure. But let's actually test this claim with real numbers. Let's compare an early starter and a so-called late starter. Our early starter is 25 years old and puts away $500 a month for 40 years at a 7% return. After 40 years, they end up with approximately $1.3 million. That's a nice number, and it's exactly why financial advisors always hammer on starting early. Now let's look at our 40-year-old who supposedly starts late, but because this person is in their peak performance years and making really good money, they're able to invest $1,500 a month for 25 years at the same 7% return. What does that get them? They end up with $1.2 million. Stop and think about that for a second. With 15 fewer years in the market, but significantly higher earning power, the 40-year-old nearly matches someone who had a 15-year head start. This completely debunks the myth that starting late dooms you to financial mediocrity. But let's take it even further. What if our 40-year-old can save $2,500 a month? That's totally realistic for someone in their peak earning years, making excellent money. At $2,500 a month for 25 years at 7%, they accumulate $2 million. Now they've blown past the early starter by a wide margin. Here's what this proves. Compound interest does not care how old you are. As long as you contribute enough and give it enough time, the math works. And 20 to 25 years is plenty of time for compound interest to work its magic. One of my favorite examples that highlights this power is Warren Buffett himself. Many people mistakenly assume that Warren Buffett was always a billionaire, that he built his wealth early and just rode it out. But if you actually look at his wealth timeline, he didn't become a billionaire until he was 56 years old. 56. Well past his 40s. He was supposedly past his prime years. But the compound interest math didn't care about that. And that same math that worked for him after 56 is what compounded his wealth to over $150 billion today, if you include everything he's given away. In essence, 99% of his wealth didn't come about until the latter half of his life. Not in his 20s, not in his 30s, not even in his early 40s. The massive wealth came later, because that's when the compounding really accelerated. So the next time you think you're too late to start building wealth, remember this: it's likely just the beginning. 99% of your achievements, your wealth, might still be ahead of you, not behind you. The math doesn't care that you didn't start at 25. It only cares that you start now and stay consistent. You have 20 to 25 years until traditional retirement age. That's more than enough time for compound interest to turn consistent contributions into substantial wealth. Reason 4. You're primed to make better, wiser decisions. The fourth reason your 40s are ideal for wealth building is about wisdom. And I'm not talking about some abstract philosophical concept. I'm talking about the hard-earned, street-smart wisdom that comes from living through your 20s and 30s and making every mistake in the book. If you're in your 40s today, you've seen things, you've experienced things, you've been up and you've been down. That's just part of moving up the age ladder. And all those experiences, both the successes and especially the failures, have taught you valuable lessons that translate directly into smarter money decisions. You've learned the hard way that boring often beats exciting when it comes to money. You understand now that flashy investments with promises of huge returns are usually the ones that leave you broke. You've developed what I call street smarts, the ability to spot nonsense from a mile away. When someone pitches you on the next big thing that's going to make you rich overnight, you don't get stars in your eyes anymore. You've heard that pitch before, and you know how it ends. And it's not just about avoiding bad investments. People in their 40s are far less likely to take on high-interest consumer debt. They've learned that debt is a wealth killer. They understand the real cost of borrowing money for lifestyle purchases. They probably made those mistakes in their 20s and bought things they couldn't afford. And they're still paying for it emotionally, even if the debt is gone. But wisdom extends way beyond just money decisions. It shows up in life decisions. And those life decisions determine whether you actually build wealth or just spin your wheels. Let me share a couple of real-life examples of wisdom in action. Julia Child is well known today as one of America's most beloved culinary icons, but her path to success was far from conventional. She spent years working as a government clerk, feeling unfulfilled and directionless. It wasn't until she was 36 and moved to France with her husband that she discovered her passion for cooking. But here's the key. She didn't rush into anything. She didn't quit her day job to chase a dream without a plan. She spent years learning, studying, and making countless mistakes in the kitchen. She understood that mastery takes time, that shortcuts don't work, and that the best things in life are built slowly and deliberately. She didn't write her first cookbook until she was 49 years old, an age when many people think their best years are behind them. That cookbook became Mastering the Art of French Cooking and launched a culinary empire that lasted decades. Her TV career didn't even begin until she was 50. Or consider Vera Wang. She spent 17 years climbing the ladder at Vogue magazine, then moved to Ralph Lauren. When she was passed over for the editor-in-chief position at Vogue, it was a devastating professional blow. She could have been bitter and given up. Instead, at age 40, she made a calculated decision to enter the fashion industry not as an employee, but as an entrepreneur. She used every lesson she'd learned about fashion, business, and yes, even disappointment, to build what would become a billion-dollar bridal empire. This is what emotional and financial maturity looks like in action. Both Julia and Vera understood something that's hard to grasp when you're young and inexperienced: the importance of patience and persistence. Reason 5. You have much greater clarity about what you actually want. The fifth and final reason your 40s are your best wealth-building decade ties everything together. At this stage in life, you have much greater clarity about what you actually want. And this might be the most underrated advantage of all. When you're in your 40s, you've been around the block. You may not have done 70 or 80 laps like your parents did, but you've done enough to get a real feel for things. Most importantly, you've learned about yourself, who you are, what you're good at, what you're definitely not good at, and what you truly value. And this is your superpower. Because when you have clarity, you can channel your energy toward the things in your life that matter most to you. You're not whacking at multiple priorities, hoping you hit the right one. You're not trying everything and mastering nothing. You have clarity about what you want, and that focus creates exponential results. Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, talked about how the company's massive growth happened in his 40s because that's when everything clicked for him. Experience, vision, and execution all came together. All the things he'd struggled with and learned compounded to that stage in his life when he was primed to take his company to the next level. That's not a coincidence. That's what happens when clarity meets capability. This pattern shows up in research too. Historical studies show that much Nobel Prize-winning work is done at an average age of 40. Why? Because peak creative contributions often occur in middle age. This is the sweet spot when you have enough experience to understand complex problems, but you still have the energy and drive to solve them. You're not so young that you lack context, and you're not so old that you've lost your ambition. In your 20s, you're trying everything because you don't know what will work. In your 30s, you're still figuring it out with many competing priorities pulling you in different directions. But by your 40s, the fog has lifted. You know what aligns with your strengths. You know what matters to you. You can say no to the distractions and yes to what actually moves the needle. This focus is what accelerates wealth building. You're not spreading yourself thin across 5 different ventures, hoping one works out. You're putting everything into the 1 or 2 things you know you're exceptionally good at. Less wasted effort, more compound results. That's the clarity advantage. So if you're in your 40s today, I say celebrate it. You're not in decline. You're in one of the best decades of your life. You have high earning power. You have peak cognitive performance. You have wisdom from 2 decades of real-world experience. You make better decisions than you ever have, and you have enough time for compound interest to work its magic. It's a perfect storm of advantages. You're not just ready to build wealth, You're primed to dominate. This is your decade. The question isn't whether you can build serious wealth in your 40s. The question is, what are you going to do with all these advantages? Your 40s aren't the sunset of your productive years. They're the sunrise of your most powerful ones. So let's bring this all together. If you're in your 40s, you're not experiencing one advantage. You're experiencing a perfect storm of 5 simultaneous advantages working in your favor. Reason 1, you're in your peak performance years. Your cognitive abilities are at their highest level, and you have 20+ years of experience guiding your decisions. Reason 2, these are your peak earning years. You're making 30 to 50% more than you did in your 30s, giving you the fuel to supercharge your wealth building. Reason 3, the math still works. Compound interest doesn't care about your age. 20 to 25 years is plenty of time to build substantial wealth. Reason 4, you make wiser decisions. You've learned from your mistakes, developed street smarts, and understand what actually works. Reason 5, you have clarity. You know who you are, what you want, and where to focus your energy. This is why your 40s aren't just good for wealth building, they're optimal. Sam Walton started Walmart at 44. Warren Buffett built 99% of his wealth after 50. Julia Child started her TV career at 50. Vera Wang built her empire starting at 40. You are not past your prime. You are entering it. Your joints might hurt in the morning. You might not bench press what you did at 25. But when it comes to building wealth, you have never been more powerful than you are right now. Comment prime time and tell me your age if you're ready to own this decade. This is your moment. Don't waste it thinking you're too old. You're right on time.